And we're live. Welcome back to another episode of the Social Kick Podcast. I'm Brian Lundquist, joined by a full crew today. Dr. John Mullen, Luke Paddington, Justin Wynn, and our guest today is distance American legend, Chad La Tourette. Cheers, Chad.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on. Cheers.
God amongst men.
So Chad, for those who don't know, was the top American miler during the 09, 10, 11 era. And, we together were on the World University Games team in 07, swam against, never crossed paths swimming in NCAAs because you were the young gun on that team, but went on to do some amazing things in the sport, including swimming at Pan Pacs, winning medals, being fifth at Worlds in 2011. And I'm sure a slew of other things, but you were the preeminent guy there for a few years. And I remember watching you racing from afar, even though we didn't interact a ton. And so it's fun to get to come back around to life in California. I've run into Chad several times at different Masters events, swimming open water, and it's cool to see you. You absolutely destroy me in those races. So we say, hey, on the beach, and then you take off. But thanks for coming to join and chat with us, Chad. Welcome to the show, and yeah, cheers.
Cheers, man. Yeah, thanks for having me on. And I think maybe you're in a different age bracket, so you don't have to say that I beat you.
Well, I think the learning for me is not to race. So, I mean, I've transitioned into doing some triathlon and doing some of that distance stuff. But I mean, I'll be honest, and I've even been first out of the water in Ironman events. But when I swim in events where you're there, I'm reminded that I'm still a sprinter. So thank you for that. And as our guest, let us know, what are you drinking tonight?
I've got, I guess it's a red blend. It's probably from Costco. I think it's called Pessimista.
Oh boy.
Let's not get to the Costco shame too early in this. We can save that for the end. But yeah, it's good. It's like it's pretty warm where I'm at. It's kind of a nice supplement to the weather outside.
I want to follow up. What's on your shirt?
So this has become my go-to. I'm on a nice video call or talking to executives during the day. Otherwise, it's a t-shirt. But they're like Tiki drinks, so it's kind of fun. This is probably like the third time I've worn it this week, so luckily you can't smell it.
There's a lot of formality in your life.
Yeah.
This is the first time in the year where I'm actually like a little bit sweating. It's hot enough outside. I went for a bike ride today. It was in the 80s. I think it was like 89 at 5 o'clock today, which in dry heat, it's pretty hot. So cheers. Thanks for joining. I'm also having some wine along with you. This is from South Africa, but it's got a French name, as most wines do. So Chenin Blanc. And yeah, that's the wine. Luke, what do you got today?
I went back to my true and from the pantry Voodoo Ranger. I've been drinking this 4 or 5 weeks in a row because that's what we get to go. But here's the IPA. It's not bad. Yeah.
Recycled. John, what are you drinking?
Some Glenlivet Scotch. Sorry, I didn't put the bottle next to me. I figured that was best for everyone's sake. But back on the Scotch train.
It's probably better not.
Still out of beer. Still out of beer that I like at my house. So that's what's going on there.
Probably better not to house the bottle. Justin, what do you got tonight?
You know me, good old Corona. Nothing too fancy. Another day.
Good old Corona. Their stock's down like 3%.
Well, I'll help them out.
All right. Well, enough about that. We wanted to start about swimming. So, Chad, one of the things we like to do is ask people, especially that are, I'm going to call you post-career, even though you're still doing some master swimming. And I saw you got under 16 minutes in the 1500 last summer at Masters Nationals.
Oh, yeah.
What the hell?
That's an especially funny story because so I got married a couple days before that. And I knew I was coming down. We got married in Carlsbad. And I had to pitch it to my wife. I was like, hey, the Mission Viejo pool got renovated. Would you mind if I just stopped by for a solid 20 minutes or so? And so I had kind of committed to a certain tuxedo size, obviously earlier in the year. and I wanted to keep myself pretty honest. So was training a good amount, and by like good amount, let's be fair, it's like maybe 10,000 meters a week versus like, 100,000 meters when I was actually swimming. But it was a good motivator. So I successfully got married, and I successfully broke 16 minutes a couple days later, which felt pretty incredible. I mean, it's like, a minute slower than I used to go, but felt pretty awesome. Like I took it pretty seriously. I shaved down, and it was fun.
Man, that's awesome. Well, you talk a lot about getting back in the water for a pool meet, and I don't know, some part of me says I'm okay being in decent pool fitness, doing open water stuff, but a little bit scared or hesitant to go back in the pool and then see what's on the board. So yeah, but that's such a good time. And the times I swim long course too, within the last couple of years, the idea of holding anything under 110 long course in a row is kind of crazy for me, but certainly not for a guy like you that's been under 15 minutes. So let's start there. So what do you remember about your last swimming race?
For that Masters meet, or like my last real race?
Your actual last, like, legit, I'm a competitive swimmer and I do this full time race.
Trials, this one's that one.
Yeah, so that was in 2013. It was World Champ Trials, and I'd been training for probably about 7 or 8 months with Tony Batis's passive Postgrad program, which was awesome. It was maybe like 4 or 5 guys, all from Stanford, different years, guys who kind of want to continue on, stay in the Bay Area. A lot of us like exploring jobs and like post-grad work. So I had a pretty missed the team in 2012, kind of devastated, but I was still on the national team stipend, and I did have a job lined up right after I graduated, or after like the trials. So I was like, you know what? If I keep swimming, I can get the stipend and swim like once a day, try to stay pretty honest with the training, and then also like begin the job search and all that stuff. And so that's what I started interning, swimming once a day with Tony's group, and actually really liked the balance. I was doing like sprint workouts, completely different than anything I'd ever done before. And just kind of focused on knowing that my last honest effort was going to be World Champ Trials the next spring. So I think I swam the 400 and 1500. I ended up scratching the 800, did the 400. It was fine. It wasn't a terribly special time for me. And then the last race I did was the 1500. And it actually went pretty well for swimming once a day and just doing sprint workouts. I think I was 1510, which was, I feel like I was like 6th or 7th or something. If I was way worse, you can make fun of me. It is better in my mind.
I'm curious also, what was a sprint workout in your eyes at this point?
If Tony is watching this, he is probably laughing right now. But sprint workouts were, so like proper sprint workouts where it'd be, like maxed out hundreds with lots of rest. That's like a sprint workout for me. And then Tony would have, I think once or twice a week, he'd call it overload day, which were just like silly sprint sets. So to give you an example, like we'd be in the 50-meter pool, and it would be 2-man relays for like sprint out to 15, flip without a wall, and then dolphin from a dead start back into the wall. And then the other guy, maybe that guy would climb out, you'd put him on your back and do 10 squats with the guy on your back, and then you go and do that too. Mm-hmm. And so like, for me, all slow twitch, like I couldn't walk for days after those workouts. But doing those once a week and doing just kind of more of an intensity program, it wasn't my fastest time at the end of the season, but like for what I did, I was like actually very impressed with the amount of fitness that it built up.
Chad, I wanted to talk about 1452 because we're all sprinters here talking, the three of us at least. So the mile, we know swam the mile, at least I didn't, and I can't imagine swimming the mile. And when I was 6 years old, a huge breakthrough in swimming happened. Stanikov went 14:58.
Yeah.
Right? And that was massive. And that's when I was really starting to get into swimming, and I remember that moment clearly. And Stanikov dominated that race for 11 years. Until and then when I was in college, Perkins came along, and Perkins dropped that hammer down. He dropped it another 10 seconds. And just watching those races and watching those splits and how those guys swim it was fascinating. Everybody thinks a mile is boring. I think it's fascinating to watch. And then I got the opportunity to start coaching it, and I got to coach some guys, and I loved like getting them to like. And I was amazed at how milers can hold their pace, and they'll close their eyes and they go in a zone, and they can split down to the 10th every 50, bap, 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 for 16 kilometers a day. I love coaching milers. I love predicting what they did. And you know, your best time, which is 14:52, was a world record when I was a freshman in college. You know, 1991. That's fast. That's effing fast. Excuse my language. And I want to talk about that. Do you realize how fast you are? And went in terms of history, and what did you split for 50? I mean, John, you want to get into that? How did you split your mile, and how did you train for that? I mean, it's quite a legendary group of swimming, is the mile.
Yeah, it in that perspective, it's fast, and it's crazy how far the science in the swimming has come, because it's not fast anymore, right? So like now, if you want to be a competitive threat, you have to be like a mid 14:30 swimmer.
Yeah.
And it's just like people are figuring stuff out, and it's almost like the science is accelerating. So for me, when I was growing up, I grew up on Mission Viejo, and it was a very distance heavy, like some people might describe it as like an old school approach to swimming, right? It's like certain weeks you're doing 100,000 meters. Most weeks you're doing at least 80,000 meters.
Yeah.
And there aren't any rest days. So you start the set all out, and you try to end the set still going all out, and that set might be 5,000-6,000 meters.
Wow.
And that was all good. I was getting faster and faster, and then I went to college, and at Stanford my program significantly changed. It changed to more rest practices, shorter practices, and intensity that I didn't know was possible, like during a training week. And I think it was like really good. I think that piece at Stanford definitely got my short course yard swimming a lot faster. I think it also rubbed off on my long course swimming too. I think like the 14:52 was in 2011. So I had just finished up my junior year of college, and I was also swimming. I remember I did like a 10K. Like I was just like knocking stuff out that summer, and just like could get up and race whenever I wanted to. The funny thing about that World Championships was I got sick in Shanghai, and so it was right before the 800. The 1500 was a few days later. I wonder if I hadn't have gotten sick, like could I have broken 14:50 or something like that? But I was still pretty happy with the time and the place, and being able to swim in the final. Swimming in that final was when Sun Yang broke the world record. That was, oh gosh, it had to have been like, it felt like it was 20 years old. Like the entire like arena they had converted was going crazy, and I'm just trying to finish the race. I'm like, something good happened, but like that dude's 20 seconds in front of me. So that was a good race for me. I was happy with my performance. Yeah. What
time did you predict you would have gone? Because you knew when you swim the mile, you guys practice repeats of this time holding this pace, and you know I'm pretty confident. I know I can hold 20, 28 or something. What time did you predict that ideally, if all the conditions are right, you think you would have gone 48?
Yeah, I think I should have been the 40s. I mean, I look at my best 800s, and I think my best 800 in a jammer, so post suits, was like 7:46, so that's like 58s, and I just felt like I should have gotten to a point in the 59s where it would have put me under 14:50. But Yeah, I mean, like, I was still happy with that race. Felt like I got up and might have been a little bit sick before that, and was in China and like never been to pool worlds before, and was still pretty happy with the performance.
How were you a swimmer like Perkins? You know, Perkins broke 800 in the mile in Victoria, right, in Commonwealth Games. That's a legendary race. Were you that kind of swimmer? Would you have put down a good 800 in your mile? Like, how did Perkins do that? Were you that kind of swimmer? How did you swim your mile? What was your strategy? And then did it change over your career?
Yeah, I think my strategy was always pretty similar, which was how I trained. It was just like balls out from the beginning. I would swim good negative split miles in season. So we would come back sometimes in Olympic years or maybe a few other years where we come down from altitude, and 2 weeks later they'd have like a Grand Prix swim, and I would do the mile there and they'd be very intentional about negative splitting, and it would feel so effortless, and that would get me like, you know, mid 15-minute type swims, like 15:06, 15:07.
Yeah.
But I feel like to get a swim like the 14:52 was just like I personally had to be going from the very beginning. Like I had to just be pushing myself. My best miles never felt super easy in the beginning. It was always just like, it's going to be hard. It's just going to get harder as it went on.
Yeah, that's interesting with your pacing strategy. I was talking with a researcher from Ireland earlier today, and we were talking about, you know, pacing. It sounds so simple. You go repeats in practice and voila, you do that in the meet. But there's so many other factors as far as, you know, psychological factors as well as previous race experiences. And I just like to hear kind of your experience. Like you said, you like to go all out, balls from the wall. It never felt good. When did you come to that realization? And do you ever look back and wonder, you know, what if I would have done different pacing strategies and things like that?
Yeah, I think about training a little bit. So the way I was taught to train from the very, very beginning was never, especially in Nadadores, like not terribly descend effort focused. It was more like you might have a repeat or two to get to your pace, and then you're holding that pace for the rest of the set. And so I feel like that set a pretty strong precedent in the way that I felt like I should feel in the actual races. I go and look at some of the other distance programs, and it's a lot more like getting yourself fresh for a big effort and then coming down off of that and then doing it again. So your top end's a lot higher. And so I wonder if like Mission had been more skewed toward that, would it be like chill in the beginning and then build from, you know, like a minute down to 59, like low 59? But I just really feel like my training set the precedent for how I felt like I was supposed to feel in the race.
I talked earlier on this podcast about one of the best races I ever saw was 2006 NCAA mile. It was Peter Vanderkay, Seb Ruwalt, and maybe Larson. And in that race, the three guys, Justin, you might want to fact check me if that was Larson, who was the third, but those guys were together through like 9:50. And then right there, they were holding 26s, and Seb threw in a 24 in the middle of the race, and then just sat right back on 26s, and it just killed everybody. Like that was it. It was the move in the race.
Yeah.
And it's one of the only times that I really remember seeing that in a distance event. Not so much that there's just like this big effort in the middle, but I feel like that's more common in open water swimming. Is that something that ever became a factor in your training? Is talking about strategy? That's one of the coolest things to me about watching distance swimming is like seeing strategy.
That is an interesting. I wasn't watching that race, obviously on the deck, but I don't remember looking at the splits either. But that's really interesting because as a distance swimmer, you can almost get like a sixth sense of where everyone else is in the pool, not locationally, but like how they're feeling. And how you do that is you test, like you take little tests and you see what happens to everyone else around you. You can do it in the pool if you've got a good sight line on like whoever you're racing. So Seb doing that, like I imagine he threw it on his legs to do that, but you can kind of see like if they pick up their rate, are they countering you really easily, or are they not countering? And that kind of gives you an indication of like, if they're not countering very well, they're hurting. And if they're hurting, you should probably press them until they're not going to be able to recover from it. In open water, it's very similar too, except you don't have your own lane. So if you press them and they say, yeah, you're probably stronger than me, but then you go and pull them for the rest of the race, they can still trample you if they're eating well and they're like fed, and like the last 1,000 of the 10K, like they might be tired, but their glycogen's filled up, and like they'll still trounce you because you've been pulling them for the last like 5K. So that, I think that's what makes open water more fun, honestly, because it's like cycling or any of the other sports where, sure, it's like a pure fitness sport, but there's a lot of strategy involved in like how you're racing compared to everyone else.
Was that a factor in your pool swimming, this reading the competition and catering the tactics that you play in your race to them? Is that something you guys focused on a lot?
We did. Like if you were in a prelims finals format for the mile, for sure. So you would watch the heats before and after you and make sure that like you knew what was going to get top 8. You didn't want to just throw everything you had into the prelim swim. And then obviously the guys that were in your heat, you just make sure you beat them and you didn't go too far over that. For pool swimming, like I think about my senior year at Stanford in the mile at NCs and racing. Gosh, I'm so sorry for forgetting his name now. He swam at UGA. Martin Grodszki, incredible swimmer. I always admired him because he and I were like the same size, like not these like massive dudes who are just like built to swim, but like could absolutely punish the water. So in that race, he and I were on 26s and, you know, tit for tat back and forth each 50. But we were probably like 3 or 4 lanes apart, so we could see each other for sure. And I just feel like we were never able to test because we went out and just tried to hold on the entire race. And that's how it happens sometimes, more likely in the pool. You know, open water, you're not going to get that because people are smart and they're going to save that for the last like 1,000 or less.
So I remember watching that race, and I had even commented to these guys about that race before we talked to you. And then we were just like doing some research on you, and I remember thinking, wow. So, I mean, you obviously know this, but at the time, Chris Thompson's mile record had stood since 2001. And you know, we've been waiting for that record to go down. You'd even won an NCAA mile, but it made it through the suit era. And here, you know, you are after a few years of a second, a win, a second, and coming in, you know, in pretty peak form, I would say. And, you know, I swim at Auburn, so I was aware of Grodszki and the UGA guys as well and seeing what they were doing in that training group. But, man, watching you guys duel in that race, but then and be 2 seconds under the NCAA record, one of that nature, stomp on it. But I remember just feeling for you so strongly that what's it got to be like. So what do you remember about that race?
Yeah. I remember I swam a good 500, and like the 500 for me is a sprint beyond a sprint. So I was like 4:13, cool. Like that feels nice. Like, and 4:13 is not fast anymore, but like for me, I was like, all right, cool. Like I'm set up well. When my 500 feels good, usually my mile is pretty good. And so also just random note, like my coach made me swim the 4 a.m. day 2. I have no idea why I had to do that. I DFL'd in that. I was like, cool, I'll show you. Yeah. I was like, cool, I'll warm that down and get ready for the mile last day. So, you know, pace felt fantastic. And I knew it was going to be a duel with Grodszki. Like, he was great. He might have won the 500, or was right up there too. So I knew it was going to be a duel. He was the guy to watch. And so we started going, and my goal was to break the record. I didn't, I honestly didn't know. I knew I was going to be well under 14:30, but I didn't know if I was going to get under 14:26, which was Chris Thompson's time. And so I just said, like, as it started going, like, he's swimming very well, I'm going to try to stick with him. And it seemed like we were pretty equally matched. And so it went wire to wire. I've seen the video before. I think he really put it on me at the 1550 mark. And I didn't counter super well, and I had a good last 50, but it wasn't enough type thing. And so I touched the wall, and I saw the time, and I saw I got second, and I didn't care. I was like, this is dope. Like, a German beat me, so I'm now the American record holder. And he's a great competitor, so I wasn't even bummed. And when I went into the stands, if people were like, that was awesome, I'm sure you're really pissed about getting second. And I was like, I'm not. I'm a senior. First of all, I didn't want to exit my college career with any regrets. And honestly, I can't say I am. That was an incredible race, and a lot of good came out of it. And I was really pleased with the result. So yeah, I mean, sure, the idea would have been to win, but it was still a pretty magical way to end my college career.
Hey, Chad, we read an article from the Stanford Daily from 6 years ago, right? And I'm assuming it's pretty accurate, but it was really insightful for us. The one that George Chin wrote about, it basically summarized what happened at trials, which is the elephant in the room for any swimmer, especially you. And those who are not watching, third is the hardest place ever at trials, and to come at twice, I don't know how many swimmers that's happened to. And
totally.
we can get into that. And I want to make a comment on it though, because I can't imagine coming third at trials. I can't imagine missing one of my dreams. And from that article, how you dealt with it and how your career dealt with it, I just wanted to commend you, because you the perspective you had after 08, I remember watching 08, and I remember watching Vent. I was so excited for Ben to break a new record or something, because I seen him at Santa Clara go his best time, right?
Right.
And I assumed, okay, boom, he's going 14:30 something. Hackett's in trouble, and
right.
He can make the team. So to be frank, I didn't remember seeing you swim that race,
right.
but I do remember Loudson and stuff swim, and but I do remember 12. I remember seeing you ahead. So the way you came back from 08, and then what you did after 12 to keep swimming, and to, you know what? Is it because you love the sport? I'm just going to go for worlds, and you went again. I mean, coming back from that, kudos to you. You're still swimming now. You're kicking butt in open water. Talk to me about your mindset. Is it just that you just love that sport? You have to, right? To swim 16.
Yeah.
It's a sport, yeah.
Yeah. No. It's a good question, and I'm not gonna lie. I was super bummed after 2012. If I thought to myself, if I had a great job lined up after 2012, I probably wouldn't have kept swimming. Mm-hmm. And for the first couple of months back in the water and in late 2012, it was difficult. And every meet that I went to, because the national stipend, you had to go to Grand Prix meets. I really felt embarrassed being around people. That was a really tough part for me. I just felt like I need to get through this. It should get better, and it did, honestly. After a couple of months, I figured out you have a chance to train and get up and race again. You're doing a totally different program. It's going to be interesting to see how you do, and why not give it a shot? And it's probably going to be your last shot, so make it a good one. I didn't have 3 or 4 years left in me for that. So I did it, and I was pretty proud of myself, because it wasn't an easy year. It definitely wasn't easy coming right back after that trials. I stopped then, obviously, and then took I think about 2 years off, and then because you need to get out of the water. Like you're burnt out, especially as a distance swimmer. You need to figure out why you love the sport. And I was pissed off at the world after that. And like, I hated the sport, and took 2 years off and started swimming again at the Olympic Club in San Francisco, and just started going to maybe like 2 lunch practices a week. I was probably like, I think I started cycling, and that was fun. I was like, do you want to actually try to start swimming again? Like, do you actually want to get into this? Aren't you kind of tired of it already? And what I found was there was a community of swimmers who had captured all the great things about swimming and had not brought like all of the stomach ulcer inducing like aspects of the sport with it. And it was like awesome. It was everything that honestly a post-grad and post-competitive career swimmer should get. And I'm still doing it. Like, I love it. That was I think about 6 years ago now. Great and relatively same group of people that I'm still swimming with. You guys had Kat on the show.
Yeah.
She's one of them. So it's just like a fun group of people who all were at a very similar level in their career, and figure out how to keep loving the sport after that without, finding that burnout spot.
Definitely. And you mentioned burnout, and like you said, the psychological burnout. I'm sure there was some physical burnout, especially from being a distance swimmer. Could you talk about, like you said, you took some time off. Other great swimmers have taken time off. What did you think during that time? What did you do for your body to, if anything, to stay in shape?
Yeah, that was a really cool exploratory period for me, because I wanted to get good at something that I wasn't good at. And there's a lot of sports that I thought were interesting growing up. The one that I always had a fascination with was cycling. And when I was swimming, we would do our 100,000 meter weeks during the Tour de France. And so I would go to swim practice in the morning, get absolutely wrecked at Nadadores, and then come back and watch the second of the day. They televise the same stage like 5 times on NBC Sports or whatever. So I come back and watch this.
I would do the same thing, but I wasn't doing 100,000 meter weeks.
Your practice was harder in a different way, right?
I would go lift and then do a power workout and then come watch the tour.
Yeah. So I come back, I'd probably fall asleep 30 minutes into the stage, wake up, oh great, it's 3 p.m. I gotta do another 100,000 meters, and then watch the highlights and the attack at the end. And I thought it was really cool. There were these like characters in the race. There were like the heroes and the villains, and some of the stages were boring and some of the stages were really exciting. And like, I didn't care. I wanted to try it. So my uncle lent me, which turned into like a knee injury, and just gave me his road bike. I started riding that late college. Just never got into it because I was a swimmer. After that, I lived in Palo Alto for a couple of years, and the riding in the hills up by 280 is honestly like world class. And my weekends turned into, like 100, 200 miles of riding every weekend. Wow. And I was just like super into it. Started doing fondos and really enjoyed it. I was awful, like, because I'm obsessed with Strava, and I know how bad I was based on how low I was in the rankings when I started on Strava. But
we're all obsessed.
Yeah, I decided not to care, because I was starting new on something. Like, I wasn't this guy who had done this same thing for 20 years and, had this insane aerobic system built around it. It was all legs. I was all arms, and like, that was fine. It was like a challenge. So still doing that. And I love cycling, and still obsessed about Strava, but that was a great bridge from post swimming, getting out of that burnout stage, and then figuring out that like, I actually wanted to introduce swimming back into my life, but on my own terms.
You're talking very similar to a recent guest we had, Glen Mills. I don't know if you're familiar with Glen's story. But to the audience, Glen made the Olympic team in 1980 and didn't get to go. And then he went to World Championships. He came 5th, and he was NCAA champion once, just like yourself. And then when he went in '84, he missed the Olympic team by coming 4th at trials, so not 3rd but 4th. And that was his time to go to LA and perform. And so we asked Glen, how do you know that was your last race? And he talks about, I went back in the work. I went out to work out afterwards, and I did a set of 450s, and I did my best time at the end of the 50. I never did that before. And at that point, I realized, no, that's it. I'm done, because he had swum really fast, and he didn't want to even think about the fact that he may have missed his taper. And because he and his coach had done everything they could and planned and put full faith into that, and he didn't want to go there. He says, nope, that's not where I need to go. I don't need to know I missed my taper. I'm going to hang out my suit. And eventually, he didn't retire. He moved on, and he did swim in a tour in South Africa, similar to you. But he decided that was it. That article, written 6 years ago, talks about, your doubts in your taper at the time and your coach. That 8 years later, just talk about your mindset of that. Because, I couldn't imagine how angry you'd be and looking for this. But where you at now at your stage in your life, and where you're at in your life and your perspective and maturity with that, how is your relationship with Coach Rose, and et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah.
It's elephant in the room, but it's interesting for students to hear.
Yeah, well, I was, I feel like it was difficult, and I definitely was angry after, and I'm sure the article kind of illustrates that. But the short of it is, Coach Rose came to my wedding last year, and it was really great. And on some level, we've moved past that. The taper and the preparation, as I've moved further and further from that point into the future, there are things that I wanted to place blame about it, and then there are things that when I think about were probably me. In 2012, I can imagine that I was putting way more stress on myself than I was in 2008, even though the result was kind of the same. And it's you're in 2008, I was the guy hunting targets, versus in 2012, I probably the entire time I had a target on my back.
Yeah.
What I did. And all throughout the taper, when you have that target on your back, every single split, every single test set, as you're coming down and down and down in distance, you're second guessing. And it was just almost toxic in my brain. And if there was the day where you're I was supposed to be keyed in on 59s, and I was a minute, or I was a minute 1, and it felt too hard, suddenly it's everything's going to go wrong. I was pretty critical at certain points of I think we need to be more rested than this. It doesn't feel like we're rested enough. And I'm kind of questioning the program. I felt like we had timed an altitude camp kind of incorrectly, and whether my mental outlook on that is what caused my performance, or actually physically what was happening, I don't know. I'm past that. I don't need to go back and decide, how I want to look at it. I've moved past it. I was pissed, obviously, and Coach Rose, the guy raised me. He selected me when I was an age grouper. We had a ton of success together. We went to Worlds together many times, national championships, all of that. So it's hard to realize that things were so successful when only one thing went wrong, but it was a big thing that went wrong.
So Coach Rose told me his best race ever was when he came to Trinidad, where I'm from, and he came twice to do open waters. No, I'm joking. What's your best moment in swimming? That was your worst. That was your darkest moment, man. What was your best moment? Was it a set when you just oh my God, I can't believe I did that set? Was it winning NCs? Was it a club?
Yeah. No, I like that question. Best swim was NCAA's 2012, the mile. The best set is an interesting one. So Coach Rose and I and the Worlds team were in Sevilla for the 2008 Open Water Worlds. And I was going to I had missed the 10K group for the Olympics qualifier race, but they still selected me to go to swim the 5K. And so I was like, absolutely cool. I'll just go and swim in Spain. Sounds awesome. So I went, and Coach Rose and I basically used it as a training trip. And there was a training pool in Sevilla. We'd go and do pretty gnarly workouts, and everyone else kind of tapering for their open water races. Hackett was trying to qualify that year. So I was kind of this young guy, because it was 2008, like Hackett's on the deck. There's all these I'm just like, this is so cool. There's all these guys I look up to, kind of gearing up for the 10K. I'm here to train. Not a lot of stress on me. Kind of in my happy place. So we had also just come down from an altitude camp, and we did a set that was 1 200, 2 200s, 3 200s, all the way up to 5 200s on 210 long course meters. And I was just like chilling 202s, 203s the entire time, and just felt effortless. And that was it's funny that I can remember that so well, because that was probably the most Zen set that I've ever done. And I felt really cool because Hackett was on the deck, and there was all this positive energy that if I was swimming fast, I would also get to show off to these studs that I looked up to.
Yeah, thrived off that.
Were there any legendary sets that you had heard of some of those guys, or doing in the past that either Coach Rose or Skip or somebody brought into your training?
Yeah, there were a few. So one of the go-tos that it was a Hackett thing, but then Eric Vent did quite a bit, and then Bob would have Peter and those guys do, was the 3100s on 130. Yep. And it was just dial in at 57, 58, and just hold that. And I feel like Coach Rose tried to get us doing that at least once every season, if not more. And I would just dread it, because he would tell us maybe 3 or 4 days in advance, hey, we're gonna do 3100s, and it just, you couldn't sleep because you were so scared of how bad it was gonna hurt. If you took it seriously enough. And honestly, you had to be in a certain rested state to do it too, because if you were kind of beaten down, it ended up being worthless. So you rest a day or two and just get absolutely demolished. And so that was one that I always kind of feared.
Right, let's get technical on that set though. Is that an old set? Because I used to do that set in college, and I swam in the 90s, and I was a sprinter and a mid-D guy, and I did a set like that. And I was always told, I think it came from Touretteski, and even the Tourette's school of thinking, because he coached Popov and stuff. John, or you guys, do you know about that 31s and 130? I mean, in milers, used to hold, you had to hold your mile time, and the sprinters would descend 8, then 6, and then 2 all out. And it was we did twice a week. We did often. There's a test set. I dreaded it. Where's that from? That school of thinking? Is that an old school? What is that?
It could be old school. I think they've adapted it in certain ways. Hackett, it would have been Cottrell that would have been coaching it. I think it depends also on how you're looping it into the overall program too. So if you're throwing, as I said, if you're throwing it in between 2 100,000-meter workouts, it's pretty useless. You're going to go pretty slow. You're not going to get a lot out of it, and you kind of wasted a day, versus if you take it seriously and you're actually kind of subscribing to the newer thought, which is you should have rest days built into your week.
Yes.
It's gonna do a lot more for you. It's gonna hurt worse, and you're gonna be a lot better after doing it.
I mean, it almost has a USRPT or high intensity race pace type of feel to it, where it's, obviously you were getting about, 30 seconds rest, but a lot of that philosophy is, okay, you're going to do 20 to 30 reps on more 10 to 20 seconds rest, but really try to dial into that pace.
Yeah. That's everything now. I feel it's don't take a easy stroke. Mission was never that. Stanford was a little less of that, and now it's I wonder what my training program would have been like now that the science has come. It's only a few years too, right? But the miles, I feel like I've gotten 10 seconds faster. People are breaking 40 seconds in the 100 freestyle, and like it doesn't seem like it's slowing down. So I think there's probably still a lot more that will evolve in the training cycle, and like people are just going to continue going faster.
Chad, did you need somebody next to you to do those sets? And if so, who was that person who you loved training with, and who was some legendary training mates you had? I mean, Brian,
yeah,
legendary sprinters. Who do you have?
I trained a lot alone, and so I feel like I got pretty good at training alone. There were some summers where I had a good training partner, and then national team camps or like pre-meet camps when you're with the national team, you've got like the best of the best. But Fran Crippen, he and I swam probably 2 summers together. He was an animal in training, like unbelievable trainer. It didn't always translate very well to pool swimming. It translated very well to open water swimming for him. But he would, I don't know how, like he'd clean my clock in training. And then when we'd race pool, I would beat him. And then when we race open water, he would trounce me. So he was a good training partner. I think my early one was like Justin Mortimer on the Nadadores. And then a lot of great like mid-distance guys who were much better wall swimmers than me in college. So, the guys that I trained with, few North Baltimore guys that I still swim at the Olympic Club. So a good grab bag of different swimmers, and then a lot of kind of more like long course swimming alone.
Did you cross paths with Chad Carvin? Like, were you a young swimmer when Chad was there? And I mean, Chad was this animal, right, too?
Yeah, a little bit. So Chad was definitely done swimming competitively, and then like made a few, had a few moments where he was trying to decide if he wanted to come back and would do a practice with us at Nadadores. And Coach Rose would let him in and like get him into a lane. And we all were kind of like starry-eyed. Like, this is a Nadador that went and swam at the Olympics, right? Like, this is a Nadador that like Bill Clinton, visited in the hospital when he had his heart thing. And so we all, were blown away every time Chad would come and train with us. So a little bit, he was more like a godfather than he was a training partner, but still pretty awesome dude.
Hey, so I remember, I didn't know him well, but I stayed at a national team camp in Colorado with Fran. Actually, so before we went to WUGS, they did this big the get together in 2006 in Colorado. All the Pan Am teams were there and the WUGS teams were there. Did you go to that? I don't know if you remember.
2006 Colorado Springs.
Yeah, it was some like everybody get together on the national team, and so we had mixed Pan Ams and WUGS teams, and I roomed with Fran and somebody else from Virginia, Pat Mellers, who was a 400 IMer, 412 at that World Uni Games, I think 414 maybe. And I don't know, that was my first and only interaction with Fran. And since he passed, my family and I have just been, my parents didn't even know him, and they still give to the Crippen Foundation. And so,
yeah,
that was certainly impactful on us. But as somebody who was in that community, what are your memories of Fran?
Yeah, Fran was like, I say this like kind of jokingly, but not like, Fran was like so Philly. So Fran was like a super loving guy, but also not afraid to like call you out in practice if you were on about some bullshit. And it was really refreshing, because not only was his training style different, but like we didn't get a lot of people from outside of our bubble in some ways in like Mission Viejo, California. And like Fran decided that Bill Rose is a great coach, and he wanted to come and learn from Bill Rose for a few summers, and also try out open water. He was always a solid pool swimmer, swam at WUGS. I think Coach Rose and him got familiar at a WUGS in South America, I want to say, and knew him from that and decided that he was at a point where he wanted to get a change of scenery and came out and started swimming with Nadadores. So he was awesome. Like, I'm happy he put up with me. I feel like I was this young dude who's kind of annoying, and he was focused and determined, and also much older than me, and like we still had a good relationship, and like he's a good training partner, and like honestly a mentor for me too.
Fran Crippen inspired a nation, dude. I mean, he inspired the world, but he showed up to my country at least once and swam on the beach. You guys swam at, Brian and John. He had the same shark and big, said it's the best shark and big swim of his life. But he inspired all the swimmers. People still talk about Fran to this day. I mean, there's this American kid who came down, but it was more than that. Chad, it was his personality, his open to anything, his friendliness. He's just like laid back and yet a badass.
Yeah. Oh, he's in so many like Franisms, like the way he reacted to jokes, or the way he would make fun of people, or the fact that, like, as far as I know, he only consumed coffee and bananas. Like, that was all he ate. And he was just like, he was kind of larger than life, honestly. But I'll never forget all those things, like those little specific Franisms about him.
Man, so now you're swimming open water. Go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Luke. You're good.
I was gonna say, now you're swimming open water, and I mean, the circumstances he passed. I mean, I've actually swum in those waters that he passed in, extremely hot. But how has the sport of open water progressed? And talk about the day. You know, what do you think when you swim open waters? It's a dangerous sport. Who would have thought from heat? We think about sharks, or we think about getting lost, or just tiredness.
Yeah.
Talk about open water. What goes through your mind and your love and that transition to open water, and how do you think about him?
Yeah, well, open water for me now is, if I compare myself to Kat, I'm like an amateur couch potato weekend open water swimmer.
He's a beast. He's afraid shot.
I know. She's just like unbelievable, but I do think open water is such a unique and different. It's a totally different game than pool swimming. So, and that's probably why I like it a lot, and probably why I liked it a lot when I kind of got into it, 2008-ish. And so for me now, open water is, I like the cold water. I feel like that's like really reinvigorating.
How cool? Because Kat was swimming last week in 42 degrees Lake Tahoe. I think she's crazy. How cool?
Not as cold as Kat, but Kat and I will swim, like, coldest I can go is like colder months in the Bay Area without a wetsuit. So that's like, there was one February, maybe 2 years ago, that I swam in the Bay, San Francisco Bay, and it's 50, and I swam for 20 minutes, no wetsuit, just a thermal cap, and I got out. I remember standing in the locker room, and I realized I'd been staring at the wall for like 10 minutes, and I was like, that's probably too cold.
Not natural.
Not natural.
You're crazy.
But the sport's really cool. There's like two different kind of like lines of the sport. The first is like the adventure side. So they're turning these channel swims into like analogous to like summit peaking efforts. So it's like, instead of Everest, I'm going to go swim across the English Channel. I think that's really cool. That's kind of like the direction Kat's gone in a few of these races. It's like a really great story. Honestly, like probably more entertaining than like the traditional like racing one, which is the 10K is now an Olympic race, and you know, it's televised, and there's a way to qualify for it. And it's different than pool swimming, and that's all like fine and good too.
But you can still get beat on the touch in a 10K, which is blows my mind. You get beat. Three of you guys go and you go. I was like, what? What are you doing?
Yeah, well, it's like if you, let's say the Tour de France, like you know, like 10 guys crossing the line, they're all trying to like lurch their bike across, but they've been racing together for 150 miles. And that's honestly probably what makes it exciting.
True. John, you got
race tactics. So yeah, go ahead, Luke.
No, I said John O'Brien. Go ahead.
Well, I think I was just seeing that we've got a bunch of great questions in the chat that we wanted to get over to you. So, John, you want to take that?
Sure. So picking back on some of the topics that that you were mentioning, people were just curious about what your diet was when you were training, and maybe how much different when you did open water.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's probably one I've gotten 1,000 times before. No, I'm just kidding. This is Michael Phelps' fault for the NBC Bob Costas piece on I consume 10,000 calories a day, which I'll start is not true. So we try to make pretty good decisions while we're training, not eating too much junk, but also at the same time consuming enough calories where we're not going into a deficit. So I'll say carbo loading was kind of a thing, but it's not like we were being dumb about shoveling pasta down. We were trying to be pretty balanced and having colorful plates when we ate. So salad, different vegetables, you've got a pasta or a carb, and you've got usually a meat or a protein. So I think I got better at that in college. At Nadadores, swam more, burned more calories. We were eating probably a lot more donuts, honestly, and fast food. But we were also younger too. So I feel like our metabolisms were more like furnaces at that point.
So I want to ask, so when my freshman year at Auburn, first time swimming for David Marsh, and I remember being at a Boston market with the team, ordering food. And, I never bought groceries for myself before that. And we're sitting at team dinner, and he comes up to me with 60 people on the team in the room and looks over my shoulder and points at my plate and says, "Where's your vegetable?" And on the plate, I had chicken and mashed potatoes and some other starchy thing. I don't remember what. And I remember thinking at the time that a potato was a vegetable because I didn't know, but I thought that it was. And so I pointed at my plate. I go, potatoes?
Yeah.
And he said, no. What you have here is a plate of starch.
Yeah.
Now, you and this other guy, Ryan Wakamerka, who is from Indiana and NCAA finalist every year, you and Wako are the only ones who don't have something green on your plate. And I go, David, I'll get up and I'll get a vegetable. I'll change it out. Right? He goes, no. I just want you to know that you and Wako are the only ones who don't have a vegetable. And I went, okay. So from that moment on, that was my colorful plate example.
Yeah.
Man, okay. There's a new way to do this. But regarding the feeding thing, I did want to ask you, open water swimming, Kat told us she takes gel baby food almond butter.
Huh.
Do you have a strategy for feeding in open water?
So her efforts are a lot longer than mine these days.
11, 12 hours.
Yeah. my peak effort now is when I see Brian and do a 5K at the Del Val meet. And so for a 5K, I might take a gel with me. So a gel would be 100 calories, 25 grams of carbs, a couple grams of sugar, and you rip that at about 3K. So you're all set for, you feel topped up for at the end. I feel I actually measured it at the Olympic Training Center one year. I burn calories pretty quickly. So if I do a 10K, it would be pretty consistent feeding every 2 to 2.5K. And that would be gel plus Gatorade. So trying to put down, close to 200 calories at that interval.
Great stuff. So I have to bring up this question because he's related to one of our members here. So Luke, who's this guy and what is he asking?
This is my brother. So I was a sprinter and he did things like open water, mile. I think he still might be the national record holder in a mile. And he swam with Fran when Fran came down. So so Sebi swam the 400 and 200 in Sydney. So he's asking this question. I'm glad he's watching. At least one family member is watching. Go ahead, Chad. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know you talked about your, some sets here, but maybe what's the toughest set you've ever done?
And Sebi's been at bowls. He swam at bowls. What happened there? So that's impressive, Chad. Let's get something down.
Okay. I haven't talked about this one yet, and I don't know, some people have done crazy sets. I feel like I've heard Vent used to do 31,000s. I don't know if that's true or not.
No, I've heard that same rumor. Yeah.
I could never do that. Anyways, Jeff Kostoff at Stanford, there was this mythical set that he did one year, which was 4 or 5,000s. I think it was over winter training when we all come back to campus, no one else is there. It's dark, dreary. You feel like you're at a POW camp. So
it's still Stanford. It's still Stanford.
It's still Stanford. No, that's true. You should call me out on that. That's true. So we're back. We're training. It's 2-a-days, and Skip walks over to me, and all the guys that you trained with were walking toward the one end, and he goes to all the other guys. He's like, "Hey, you guys are doing something different tonight." And so I walk with him. He's like, "No, you're staying." And I'm like, "Oh shit." So he hands me. He usually hands you a card, and his workout card would be about this big. It'd be a pamphlet size. And this time he handed me what looked like a cutout you would take off of I need a volunteer for something at a college campus. And it just said 2 5,000s, 50 minutes all out. And I was like,
50 minutes short course or long course?
Short course.
Yeah, still. Jeez.
And so I had forgot to pack gels that night because I usually have a thing of Hammer Nutrition, just pure maltodextrin. And I remember yelling I'm going to need every single gel on this deck. If you have a gel, please bring it over to my lane right now. And Skip had one of our volunteer assistants, good dude, his name is Andrew Schnell, work with me on the set. So Schnell comes over and he's giving me splits every 100. I get through the first 5,000. I was 58. I was like, all right, that's pretty good. I think I got maybe 2.5K in the second 5,000, and just the wheels start coming off. And I got out, and Skip's grumbling, and Schnell's that looked tough. And I was I want to go to sleep. And I hated it. But that probably was the hardest and most fear inspiring. And then also the wheels came off set I've done.
Chad, I'm going to ask you a question about why Skip gave that to you, because it's funny that Sebi asked this question. So we had a Trinidad training camp doing 20K a day, and a New Zealand 200 freestyler Olympian was the coach. And Sebastian it was a 3-a-day, and he missed the middle practice, and he came late to practice in the evening. And the coach said, "You're late? No problem. Come with me in lane 8. If you don't do this 5K under an hour, this is long course.
Yeah,
you're gonna do it again." And it was a punishment. But to Coach Richard Tapper's credit, who was an Olympian in '92, he walked up and down the deck every single lap and cheered him on and was in his face and said he missed the hour cut by 12 seconds.
Yeah.
And said, "Okay, you know what? You worked your ass off. We're good." But so the coach there was a punishment, but he still, I like that, it was good. Why did Skip do that to you? What was that reasoning back then? Where were you at in your coaching?
I think Skip realized that 4 or 5,000s was insane, but he was still hoping that some of that magic could exist. And so he negotiated down to 2 and gave that to me. And it didn't work. But Jeff was just a different athlete. Different dude. Jeff and I actually kind of formed a cool relationship my senior year. He's like, "Your turns suck." And I was like, "Yeah, I know my turns suck." And so he and I started a correspondence about getting better at turns, which he was really good at. And there's no videos about college swimming in the 1980s. And his thing was he grew up a cross country runner and swimmer. and his walls were, it wasn't the underwater, but he was a rubber band off the walls, and he tried to teach me how to do that too. And I think that was awesome. Skip wanted a little bit of that, and Jeff's like hard ass mentality back.
Right.
He tried. The practice didn't go probably as planned, but like I still gave it a go.
Like it.
That's good stuff. All right. So, Chad, we're going to switch gears into a little rapid fire session. I got some questions for you.
And first of all, Brian, this guy went to Stanford, and he has a reputation of being funny and witty. So there's some serious expectations there, Chad, okay? So have a sip of wine and get ready.
Okay.
Okay, go.
So speaking of, all right, so I'm going to tell a leading story then about Chad being funny. So, Chad, one of the things that I remember about you is, and this is besides the fact that you won gold at World University Games, the meet that we swam at together. I remember being in the dining hall with the men's team with guys like Grievers and Adam Ritter and David Plummer. I don't know if Plummer was actually at the table, but probably Grievers was. And we were playing, as all male college kids do, see how loud you can yell penis. And Chad, we're all in the dining hall at this place that's served by Thai Airlines, and learned how to say "Sawadee about getting food and say hello, thank you. We're all playing this game, and meanwhile, Chad, you're younger than the rest of us by 4 years or so. So like, you're the young guy on the team, but you're still hanging out with the group. And we're all playing this game, and then suddenly Chad, like, I remember you standing up on the picnic table, like not on the table, but on the bench, and just screaming at the top of your lungs. Is that true?
And probably, and no one knew what I was saying. Like, they're Americans and a lot of really nice Thai docents leading people around the like airplane food dining hall. I was gonna bring that up. I'm glad you did. Like the fact that Thai Airlines was contracted to do the food for that, and also like Emily Silver and a few other people getting extremely ill off of it was pretty unforgettable. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. That did happen. That was a realization for how you eat at international meets is way different than anything you might have planned for. And that's one of the things that I know the Olympic villages have gotten better, but when you start to get into some of these others still, like they're pretty world-class meets and competitions. It's not just meets. I mean, you've got all the sports there, right? It's a festival. So but a lot of times the food, it's really out of your control, and that's quite the variable. I remember specifically there brushing our teeth with water bottles because you couldn't use the water. So these are the little types of things that you have to do at international meets. Kind of crazy, but anyway. All right, I got some questions for you. Rapid fire. You ready to go?
Go ahead.
All right. What's the hardest race in swimming?
A mile. 1650 specifically.
Yards. Okay. Pool swimming or open water? You get to pick one.
I'd probably pick open water.
NorCal or SoCal?
Oh, I can't answer this because my wife and I are like, we're both from SoCal. We both love NorCal. It's like a point of contention right now.
Oh, are distance swimmers tougher than sprinters?
No. It's a different pain, but I don't think so.
You have a French name, but you look more Irish. What gives?
Pass.
If Stanford were a nation, it would have more Olympic medals than Greece, who invented the Olympics. It would also have a higher GDP. Which of these is Stanford's greater accomplishment?
Medals or GDP? Oh, medals are pretty cool. GDP is like suffering these days anyways. Let's go with medals.
I made the GDP part up, but it's probably true. NBC swim coverage tells us that reaction time is critical. What's your fastest ever reaction time?
You already know that, and you want me to it's like I don't think it's under a second. So let's move on.
We didn't get into your mechanics of how you're positioned on the block in the start, but it's okay.
If I broke 0.8, I would be like thrilled, like race over.
You won.
Yeah.
Name a rival you wanted to beat more than anyone else.
Oh, that's a good question.
Cat breed.
That's a good one on some of these races these days. I feel like Martin senior year in the 500 and 650, that was a great back and forth, and I didn't beat him in any of those races. So let's go with him.
Right on. If you could start an ISL franchise, what would you call it?
Oh, gosh. That I don't even know, honestly. What is like LA Current? That's a pretty weak name. Yeah, I feel like they can do better. Give me like a little bit of time, I could probably come up with some great alliteration for a name.
And so, have you watched ISL at all? I'm gonna pause.
A little bit. I followed on, I think Instagram. Seen videos.
So at the end of it, they've got this burnout 350s. It goes from 8 to 4 to 2.
Okay.
They call it the skins. But we've been talking about how do they make it better? Do you think the ISL should consider adding a skins for the mile?
Oh my goodness. No. Everyone is empty. The parents of the swimmers would be there. Everyone else is gone. I mean, even the swimmers would be at Olive Garden at that point.
But would you watch it? Would you want to see the dying and the suffering that would happen? Can you imagine doing a mile, 3 minutes later doing another mile, and 3 minutes later doing another mile, and you have to go all out?
Yeah, it's called swimming at Mission Viejo growing up, but like in a meet, like no. So if I wasn't in that shootout, I would also be at Olive Garden, not watching those people.
Olive Garden, Swimmer's Paradise.
Yeah, so exactly.
Well, so what's something you can do in under 15 minutes besides swim a mile?
Oh, a lot of inappropriate things aside. Under 15 minutes, a few of the big, let's make a cycling call out, like a few of the big climbs in the Bay Area, which I'm kind of proud of. I feel like I built up my legs for.
Okay, so I love that one. And if your knees aren't still hurt, we should get a bike ride in. Luke just picked up riding. I got him some gear today. I ride bikes. I work for a bike company. So love that. Chad, awesome to chat with you. We've enjoyed the hell out of it. Thanks for being on the Social Kick podcast. Where can anybody find you and follow what you're up to today?
I'm currently quarantining in Southern California until the offices open back up in the Bay Area, and then we'll go back to our place, my wife and I. So I'm in Orange County. Did you ask where you can find my social media?
If you're into it.
Yeah, Instagram. You can request to follow me. I might accept you. Strava. I guess I have to give another Strava shout out.
Will you accept us if we follow you?
Yeah, of course.
You made it great? Okay, cool.
I actually think Strava's cool right now because you're seeing other people getting out into nature and like enjoying themselves. Yeah, it's like a nice connection point with people beyond just like when this wasn't going on and people are like, yeah, cool, you wanted a pre-work ride, but now it's like, that's great. You took time to like get out of your house and like connect outside. So yeah, I'd say Strava and Instagram.
I think that's super important right now too, when the workday seems to last forever, because it's odd how that's happened, that suddenly the workdays got longer when we're all working from home. But
right.
Well, we'll look for you on Strava, but an old La Honda ride would be great. Let's do that. So that's it for this episode of Social Kick Podcast. Tune in next week for our chat with Leah Smith, and that's it. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching.